Alright, quick post-production preamble to the video. This is my first time creating a video to be uploaded for others to watch ever. So there are a lot of room for improvement in this, and just bear through some of my rambling and indecisiveness. I did, after the fact, decide to cut out all the dice scenes and rolling. One, to shorten the video, and two, just so that the player's voices name isn't being displayed, because I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot, since they did not give consent to it, for one, and I'm not trying to embarrass anybody or embarrass myself for that matter. But in any case, hope you enjoy the video. One thing I did realize in doing this, there will need to be other variations of this video, as my approach is not a universal approach, so there's not a universal response to it. Every time I played it, I've had a lot of success with it, but I can say I don't think I've had the same response twice, even against a couple top level players. So I think it's too new and too much of a shock and awe, and I'll have to show different examples of how it plays out with the UK principles. So enjoy, and definitely give me any feedback.
Hello everyone, my name's CBrownPT, both as my commander name as well as in the Axis and Allies Online Discord channel. There's been a lot of requests out there asking for a KJF video or could kill Japan first video, and I figured I would try to take that on from an Allies vantage point. Just a little bit about myself. I have been a top 10 player both in as Axis and as Allies. Although I consider myself more like a top 25 player, I do think I can give some pretty good advice and how to approach a KJF approach. So first off, I will state I do feel that KJF, or Kill Germany First, is a more consistent and efficient way to win as Allies. Although I find the KJF to be much more fun and challenging, and so I do tend to play it a little bit more, although I do lean towards KJF when I'm really being competitive. With that all said, one of the things I want to state with KJF, it's not really about killing Japan itself. It is going to be more of a neutralizing of Japan by neutralizing their navy and then taking their money islands, which are worth the higher value incomes. So my global strategy is going to be a little bit different, and hopefully something you haven't seen before. I'm going to be pretty aggressive. My goals are to have an allied stack on one of these islands by round 5, while we hold off Moscow until round 7. So here on round 1, I'm going to talk about each power just a little bit, and what their guidelines are going to be. So we're starting off here obviously with Russia. Russia's guidelines really here in the early game is just to survive as long as possible. Germany is going to be very strong. They're going to be coming at them very hard, and there's some pretty good timings out there on how to make it work. Like I said, my goal is for Moscow to make it to round 7. If that happens and my Pacific Fleet is doing their job, I will feel pretty good. Another subcategory of that is West Russia. It is important to hold West Russia as long as I possibly can, because fighters in West Russia can make it to the UK, and that is what helps hold off the Sea Lion attempt by Germany. Once they get pushed back, then the Russian fighters can't help there, and it's entirely on the UK to hold off that Sea Lion attempt. Lastly, as far as trading goes, yes, Russia will trade with Germany some, in particular trying to keep trading Karelia to prevent Germany from building troops here as long as possible. But one thing I will state is you have to remember, at the end battle, when Germany is attacking Russia, each infantry for Germany only rolls a 1, or each infantry for Russia rolls a 2. So 1 infantry of Russia for 1 infantry for Germany is a win for Germany. So I really want to make sure my trades are efficient and good as possible. All that being said, I have not played the West Russia jam technique. It may actually be a better idea when I think I'm going to be heading into a KJF, but at this point I still do the 9-12 approach, and I will buy 2 tanks and go from there. Potentially, if the Ukraine goes really strong, there may be a chance to retreat, although most of the time I am going to go ahead and go through with that battle. One thing I didn't say is I am planning on doing a KJF no matter what, even though my opponent does not know that. I am going to attempt it, even if things go really bad, so we shall see how this goes.
Well, that was a little closer than I would like. I would love to have a couple more, but I am just happy to take Ukraine. That being said, most of the time I do like to move that AA in there. If there's 2 tanks or more surviving, when there's only 1 tank, a lot of times I don't move the AA just because it's relatively easy just with the infantry and whatnot to kill. They're probably not going to send a fighter, so or at least I wouldn't if I was Germany. So I'm going to save that AA because that'll be helpful for us in defense. Now I know some of people listening may be beginners. A lot of the movements I'm doing here are fairly standard, although I do like to leave this guy back nowadays. Used to always take him over. I like to keep him here because I goofed down here too. That I liked sending my 1 fighter up here. So I'm going to have 4 in 1. So if Japan takes here and I end up going my KJF, I actually can have a fighter and these guys hitting what's left up here in Beryasha. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. And I will admit, I apologize now. I will probably make a lot of mispronunciations throughout the game of the various countries. Again, I want to get the fairly standard buy. Oh, and that's not good. So I'm going to stop at this point, as you guys got the ideas for Russia round 1. Okay, we're back. Hopefully the echo has been fixed, and we're here for UK 1. I'll go through what he did here in just a second, but like I said, I kind of like to give some of the guidelines. When we're talking about KJF, I have found that the UK is probably, in my opinion, the most important country of them all. And so when I start talking about guidelines and goals of what they need to do, so the number one thing UK needs to do in a KJF is to not get sea lioned. For those that don't know what sea lion is, that's when Germany directly attacks Great Britain and takes the capital there. So that's the number 1 priority. Number 2 is to help the United States get an advantage in the Pacific very quickly over the Japan fleet. 3, they gotta be careful and not lose India, as it can get at risk at times. And their 4th priority is to help Russia. As we said, they're going to be facing a lot of onslaught, so I will a lot of times have fighters kind of coming in and through and around West Russia and Russia to help out the Russians there. So here we go. In this particular battle, he ended up using 3 planes and 2 infantry to take out that tank, which made him have to land that 1 plane here in Germany. Probably not the most efficient, because if he'd just done 2 planes, he probably still would have taken out that tank and been able to land up here. So as such, I completely forgot my goals. Right in there above helping Russia out, which just kind of falls in that. They do need to try to get an Atlantic fleet. That is below the priority of helping the U.S. in the Pacific, though, in my opinion, when it comes to the KJF. But in this particular case, he's only got 4 fighters. He's got this battleship. He did the battleship out to kill the cruiser. So he's got 4 fighters that could reach Sea Zone 7. Obviously, we have ways of taking out the battleship, so I could do a carrier destroyer drop with the fighters and feel pretty comfortable there. However, I will say one of my biggest things, when battleship goes out to the cruiser, this is the one time that I actually consider doing a Sea Zone 37. With a Sea Zone 37, I could buy a carrier, 2 destroyers, and have this destroyer coming in. As long as 1 fighter survives C-Zone 37, it gives them odds on to live versus the 1, 2 fighters, destroyer, and bomber that could reach there. In this particular video, I said I'm going to try and do something you haven't seen before and maybe do a little shock and awe, so I am not going to do a C-Zone 37 for the fun of it. We'll see how this goes. But what I am going to say is he did do an all land build, which is a little bit scary for the KJF because that means he is going to get pressure on me when it comes time, when push comes to shove. And then he did not have to, he didn't lose any infantry, or anything in taking back Ukraine. He lost nothing there attacking the 1 tank, so he's really got a very strong setup here in the Germany. So one, it would be good to have an Atlantic fleet just to be distracting him and poking him around back here. However, again, I want to go somewhat unique, and we're going to try something a little bit different. And so I am looking at buying 2 destroyers and a cruiser to drop right here in 35 with my destroyer coming back and not attacking C-Zone 37. What I'm going to be doing is I am going to send the cruiser fighter to take out C-Zone 61. I'd like to get that them down to 1 transport. That fighter is going to fly back to land here. We're going to bring that fighter in, and then the other part I'm going to do, which is going to be a little bit screwy, is I'm going to bring this cruiser and sub down here to C-Zone 30. What that leaves here in 35, after all said and done, presuming I killed the destroyer and the fighter survives, we will be set up with, that's the right one, no, that's not the right one. Yes. So we will have 3 destroyers, 2 fighters, a cruiser, and a carrier in that C-Zone, and they are going to have the ability to attack with the carrier battleship up to 6 fighters and a bomber. We run that, it shows they got 96% odds, but at the same time, in those 96% odds, sorry, flipping back and forth, it's going to leave them likely with a loaded carrier, a battleship, and maybe 1 or 2 other airplanes. They probably wouldn't save the bomber, they'd probably save a couple fighters. But in doing that, as I'm going to have this UK bomber survive and be in Egypt, we're going to have a couple fighters coming down here. We're going to have, these fighters will be 4 spots from the India C-Zone. We'll have a bomber, 2 fighters, a sub, and a cruiser sitting here if he remains with the battleship and carrier. The other option, what I had looked at, is he could send these 2 fighters down here while attacking with only 4 of the fighters, and that really leaves him odds on 1 fighter surviving and flying back. It's going to lead to a sticky situation. Anyways, we're going to see how this plays out. The other part, so I got my 2 destroyers and cruiser. I could build another land unit, put an infantry in here, but he's not going to be able to do a sea line attempt on G2 build, because I would be able to just fly those guys right on, those fighters right on back, as well as the Russian fighters would be able to fly in, and so that's not going to be successful. So I don't need to worry about it quite yet. I'm going to save those just in case I need them, but I can always build that again later on. So you know what? I just feel more comfortable putting him in there. Those sea lions can get scary, so we'll just have him there just to get that build going. So we're gonna take that guy. Bomber, take him out. We're going to go destroyer, 2 fighters here. Fighter cruiser, take out C-Zone 61. And I believe that is all we're going to do right now. I am going to let my Russian fighter have to take out the transport in that scenario. I think we're going to have an overwhelming force anyways that I'm not going to jump too far. To make the battle a little less tempting, I'm going to move that transport out of the way. The Germans can't reach him, and that way if he does take it out, at least I still have that transport living. I'm actually going to take this transport out this way, give him the sub something to look at. Again, make it a little less tempting to hit C-Zone 30, but that sub can go out there and be out, split away from the rest of the Japan Navy. Those guys. This is where I always make my goof ups. I'll bring him over just about in the Africa campaign. So we'll call it. We're gonna see what this player does. It's getting very interesting very quickly. I do want to UK submerging though, in case he does attack here. Alright, so this is going to give him lots of choices to determine if he wants to start a heavy trade battle with UK right off the bat. Remember, if he's doing that, then he's not Pearl Harboring, which means US can be coming up north and he's going to have his boats down here, and that's going to put him in a double strain situation really quickly. Plus also, if he's sending all his fighters to deal with this, then he's not sending them to the battles on the land and there at all either. Alright, we'll see what he does. Okay guys and gals, we are back here with US 1 turn. I'm going to show you what they chose to do here in just a second. I'm going to suffice it to say that this may turn into a very quick game. We shall see. I do want to take a caveat and just let you know this is a mid-gold level match. I had 3 timeouts at the very beginning of the season, so I really didn't play much ranked and just kind of started playing with it to do some of these KJF player rounds. But so I think the fighter placement here and then his choice on the Japan 1 kind of shows it a little bit. But that being said, how many people open up their computer Japan 1 and see 3 destroyers, a loaded carrier, and a cruiser sitting in India? Is not a normal find, and so that's trying to be creative and think on your feet on a very odd situation is not easy. I've been duped by some pretty strange techniques before where I just I chose and responded incorrectly. So that being said, I'm going to do my best to edit the player's name out. I'm not trying to embarrass anybody, but I'm also new to this whole recording thing, like I said in the beginning, so just bear with me. That all said, I did want to talk a little bit about the play, since this may become into a shorter game. I want to talk a little bit more about detail about that UK guidelines. So you may recall that I said after don't get sea lion, the next best thing is help US get advantage in the Pacific as quickly as possible. In doing that, my feeling is you gotta be ready to sacrifice some big time players like a carrier, cruiser, 3 destroyers, and 2 fighters. And here's my reasoning behind it. And I'm going to come up here to Europe to kind of explain this. Remember how we talked in the beginning how a 1-to-1 trade for Germany in this front is good for Germany. So they want to create expensive trades. So, I see people put 3 infantry, 4 infantry, 5 infantry up here for Russia to have to combat with, and that's going to deplete Russia that much more quickly. So, as a general rule, it is good for the aggressor to be aggressive in their trading. Same thing when it's a KJF, when Russia's coming in and UK is coming in and US is coming in, they're trying to create as many different trades as possible and just really spread Germany thin. So same idea is what I'm playing at here in the Pacific. If Japan is trading heavily with UK, then it's going to give US an advantage very quickly, because the traditional way of playing, the US heads south through the Solomons and trades at Borneo and whatnot, and then works their way into the islands, and eventually they make it. Now let's take 3, 5, 6 key pieces of the Japan Navy and Air Force off the plate, and US is going to get there a lot faster and maybe not have to trade their transports, which is one of my big goals, is to not trade transports. So that's really kind of my thought with this whole trading aspect. This is, to me, just doing 3, 4, 5 infantry, German infantry there to make Russia have to trade with, and then give them lots of options. So that's where I was going with that. All right, so what he chose to do, he actually attacked the Sichuan trade here, round 1 battle. He did it without the bomber even, and he got really good dice. Both his fighters still survived even without the bomber attacking. So he had good dice. On the flip side, he also did Pearl, and once again, he got really good dice, and I have my sub set to submerge, and so I got no defensive hits, so his carrier is now sitting in Pearl because he had no choice. I will throw it out there. When this happens, when you do Pearl, is it worth putting that second fighter on the carrier, or better leaving it and saving it? I'm not going to argue that right now. That's kind of outside the scopes of this video, but a discussion point in the future. So here we go. Obviously he saw I was going aggressive. He even bought 3 warships and 1 transport with his purchase. But you look at this carrier is going to get wiped out by the Americans, and how he set this up: a battleship, destroyer, carrier, when I've got 3 destroyers, a carrier, a cruiser, 2 fighters, and this bomber which can reach there. I've got advantage there as well. So at the end of UK2, he's not going to have any carriers. He's going to have 1 battleship and the 3 ships he built. Assuming dice go well, of course. Dice can always get in there and say their own thing, but I think here, I don't know how many people can ever say that US won start. It can say, I think I've already won the Pacific. And I think I can say that. Honestly, again, this really wouldn't have been my play turn 1. I do want to reiterate, my turn 1, I would have built a carrier and 2 destroyers, or a carrier, destroyer sub, and an infantry. And I would have done a C-Zone 37 attack. If just 1 UK fighter lived, I would drop that navy right here, and that battleship and carrier would already be gone. And I'd have great advantage. If C-Zone 37 went poorly, I could have dropped them in the Atlantic and started doing a KJF and start bailing out to Africa to protect India, where the US would come into Africa to deal with the Germans. In any case, that's what my real play probably would have been in that starting scenario. But like I said, I didn't want to show C-Zone 37. I wanted to show the challenge of facing big trades and how do you approach that. So for the record, what would have been a better play here? I honestly, I haven't sat it all the way out. I would hate to face my own KJF, to be frankly honest. But I had the tendency, I would have skipped Pearl, and one of two options that come to my mind. I would have sent all 6 fighters, a bomber, the battleship and carrier from C-Zone 37. I would have gone through 36 and then hit 37. Done a 1-round strafe where you got 6 fighters, a bomber, a battleship, and a carrier. And if I got lucky enough to get 5 hits, which isn't completely out of the unexpected there, then this Navy's gone. The fighters have to land, assuming that, and I do have currently fighters after carrier. And then these guys, you'd expect about 3 hits, maybe 4 hits in return in one volley, and then I could have retreated here, and that 3 to 4 hits, 1 would have gone to the battleship, and right now he's got 7 planes, 4 spots for them to land, so taking out the fighters and the bomber, it would have decreased his chance to dead zone a place, but it would have kept his full defensive Air Force and fleet up at least. The other option, and this may actually be the better one, would have been to come back and stack C-Zone 61 and brought down, or maybe in C-Zone 48, just gotten everything consolidated together and get ready for the push. Because one of the things, had he come down to 36 and he not done Pearl, I could have been coming up here in C-Zone 64, 58, 59, just depending on what I could comfortably land and stack. I really like 58 and 64 because his fleet's down here to protect his production in Japan. He would have to come in, and if I'm in 58, he would have to put in a block here at 60 as well as at 63 to prevent me from hitting 62 and build there. If I'm at 64, he still has to put a block in at least at 63. And if he's stacking down here, he's probably going to bring that destroyer down because I got a bomber, maybe a couple fighters left over, and a sub and cruiser coming in. And so then what does he block 63 with? His destroyer's down there. He's then got a battleship, a cruiser, a carrier, so, expensive blocks then. So anyways, that's my thought. I wanted to give a little bit of that information and go ahead and get through this. Again, part of me actually thinks I could build a KJF right now, US 1, and go KJF with them and let the Allies come back. I'd wipe those guys out still, but I would bring my transports back and UK take DEI on 3 and maybe even Borneo and really create havoc. They've only got 2 transports, so they're going to have a hard time getting back on land, and then let the US take over the Atlantic. But this isn't a split video or a KJF video. This is a KJF video, so I'm going to stick with the plan of going KJF and move on forward. So my first US buy, this is one thing that is pretty standard for me personally. I'm going to get 2 destroyers, 2 subs, and a carrier. Now, I will say one of the things too that I'm going to be doing, I'm already going to be prepping for stage 2. So when I bring the sub up, I'm going to be able to bring him in to start trying to neutralize C zones. And I'm also looking at dropping a fleet in Atlantic really soon. Since I feel like I'm already doing really well here, I'm going to tell you now, I'm going to move this destroyer up and then come over to help drop a fleet in UK2. Or UK... Yeah, UK2, sorry. Let's make sure I'm not missing anything. I'm notorious at missing things normally, so I gotta take my time, and talking on a video is gonna make it even much easier to miss something. I think that's everything in there. Since I had to stop in Pearl, I'm gonna, oops. we can do this again. I'm going to grab this guy. Come on in. We're going to pull him back. Like I said, I'm going to bring this destroyer up this way. You know what? He's got no threat to me that I can go ahead and bring him to 9. You know, he can't. Oh, wait, yeah, he can. I lied. We will stick with the original plan. And just bring him on in here. I'm going to lie again. This is why I should have thought this out before recording. I'm going to bring him all the way up to here. Again, 1, 2, 3. He's got no threat here, but what this does allow is it does allow my destroyer to get to 6, just in case I decide I want to drop my UK fleet there. Not likely. Most likely I'm looking at 8 because I got this transport coming up that if he leaves anything open, I could attack. But I like to have my options open. I've already committed this destroyer is going to come in the Atlantic, so that's just a slightly better position. Just putting these 2 in case he does something silly like taking Alaska. Then I got 2, plus I'm going to have my fighters here. And they're not going anywhere else right now, so we can leave them be there. That should be everybody on there since he took out my Szechuan, which I did like this approach. If I wasn't going to trade here, I would have taken Szechuan. I would have left Pearl probably alone. Alright, here we are on Russia 2. So, we know that the Pacific battle is going pretty well. I'm looking up here at the front. You know, I kind of wish I could have taken that transport because these 4 infantry and a fighter would be nice to hit here. But I really do need to take care of that transport. I don't want any silly sea lions happening, so it's priority. We got to take him out. That being said, I'm going to try and create a little bit of a headache up in here, but we're going to go ahead and go forward. So I got 28 IEPC. I plan on attacking Ukraine to try to block the double blitz of the tanks being able to hit West Russia and Ukraine. And then also, like I mentioned earlier, I like to take out Karelia as best I can, just to hold those 2 production spots and make them produce back here for these infantry to march on up the line. So I'm going to have 27, so I can go ahead. That's going to be 9 men next turn, hopefully. So I can go ahead and spend my full 28. I'm going to get my 1 artillery, and I'm going to get 8 infantry. I'm going to be loading up infantry, like I said, in the long run. So I am at a little disadvantage. I'm using up my artillery. I really thought, if this was a closer contested game, I may only do the 1-on-1 in the air. But I really just want to block this off because even if I just have a stalemate and I kill his 2 infantry, he could blitz the tank through, and then just that 4 income for Germany, I'd rather just hold it back, and I feel like it's worth the extra infantry I'm sending in there. The top 10 guys here are much better at the economic side of this, could argue that through, you know, they're losing a tank, whatever. I just feel like it's a better move, especially since I'm doing pretty strong over here. I'd like to keep it to just Belarusia being his only entry point. So since we got that secured, we're going to go ahead and bring everything up to West Russia. Part of me, I could start going back and harassing Japan, but he's got 7 infantry coming at me. This could be turned into a headache. We're going to see what happens with what he does with that, but we're going to play just defensive on the front on this side and hope for the best. Up here, I'm actually going to put 1 infantry here just so he can't do a blitz and come. And then I'm going to move 2 and I'm going to leave 1 here. So he has to attack these either 1 at a time, so he only gets it, 1 at a turn and not get them both in the same turn. And if he decides to try and split, with some fighters in air and whatnot, maybe my infantry hits and it creates a little more headache. So I'm just doing that to create a little headache back there. Get my fighters into place. As you can see, my clicking is not always the greatest. I have lost games because of misclicking and not realizing what I did. All right, real quick. I just want to give a shout out props to Shadowmere right now. I'm currently in a game. I'm making this video with him in which it turned into him doing a KJF against me. As Axis, I started out, I had 5 fighters, a bomber, a couple subs sitting here. That prevented him from being able to build a UK Navy on round 1. So he's been building fighters and bombers and sending them down south and working this way. And I think he's been hearing my Discord rants on playing a little bit unique, and he created a 1-2 punch here at round 3 to round 4 where US took Borneo, and then he flew in all these fighters he'd been building and a bomber, and was able to have a transport come in. It took me by surprise because right off the bat, he's got the cruiser, so I can't use my bombardments, and even if I brought everything in, it's going to be a 50-50 on Borneo. So great play by Shadowmere. Props out to him. This is a great example of UK making Japan choose to either trade heavily with him, where if I win all in, it's a 50-50, and that's probably with me losing 4 fighters, or trying to find another way around. I'm still processing this. I'll figure it out and hopefully get a good response to this play. But I just wanted to show another example of how UK can aggressively get into a KJF and make things turn quickly again, as there's a good chance he's got a US 3 Borneo. So, all right, stay tuned. We'll get the rest of the original battle I'm in a next video.